Let's start with some Super Bowl statements. Bartholomew, who needs to make a statement in the Super Bowl next Sunday?
I think it has to be Xavier Worthy, who's quietly becoming their #1 receiver. Last week, he had over 100 yards of productivity on the football field. You talk about Deacon Duncan, death by 1,000 paper cuts with the 2 high safeties from Philadelphia. This is the one guy that can blow the top over the defense when that 8th man comes in the box and gets that one-on-one coverage.
We'll see if he has a big day, the rookie for the Chiefs. Mike T, who needs to make a statement for you?
Defending the run, assuming Saquon Barkley's held in check. I think their corners hold up pretty well against Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. Dallas Goedert, when healthy, is a very underrated player. I think he can make the difference in the game between the numbers for Jalen Hurts.
Graz, how about you? Who do you think needs to make a statement?
I said Jalen Hurts. I think I interpreted the question differently. These guys are like, who needs to make a statement for their team to win? I'm talking about for posterity. Jalen Hurts, when you're a quarterback in the NFL, your legacy and the way you are remembered is defined by your success in these games. Here's another chance early in Jalen Hurts' career to deliver something for Philadelphia, a Super Bowl title. Didn't work out for him 2 years ago. It's a big game. You never know when you're going to be able to get back.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because of how well he played the last time he was there, or the only other time he was there, but not getting the win. Let's talk about Hurts a minute here because to me, he's become a fascinating figure. Is he overrated? Is he underrated? I've heard both of those arguments. So yesterday on local Philadelphia radio, our Jason Kelsey brought up the Eagles' explosive plays, Saquon Barkley, the addition that he has been, and how the quarterback has impacted that.
I think Jalen never gets enough credit for a lot of the things he does for this offense. And Saquon Barkley would not have the season he had without having Jalen Hurts as a quarterback. And that's a reality of it. And he never gets credit for that. And a little bit, but all of that goes to the offensive line and Saquon. The reality is his threat as a runner, his threat as an RPO person, all of that stuff opens up so many other things.
Okay, so there's Jason Kelsey. Who would know better than him? Maybe a linebacker. So let's ask that question. Saquon Barkley just had what might very well be the greatest season any running back has ever had in the history of the NFL. That's right there with the best of them. Does the quarterback deserve credit for that? Absolutely.
We first saw this when Michael Vick's team continuously always led the league in rushing because he's such a threat to keep the football that it holds the backside defensive end, the backside linebacker, creates these horizontals.
There was the one year where they had that really good year that they went to the playoffs and won a game. Remember, Daniel Jones was running the ball like crazy that year. Maybe not as well as Jalen Hurts does, but really effectively.
700 yards.
And look how well it worked.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, look, the Lamar Jackson Ravens teams almost always led the league in rushing, right? Like by wide margins a lot of the years. And there's no question about it. When you watch like the Ravens playoff games this year and you're watching Derrick Henry tear through the middle of the defense, you're also seeing the linebackers kind of drift over toward Lamar, who doesn't have the ball anymore. Yeah. So, I think there's a lot to be. Look, this Eagles team is extremely well assembled, right? Saquon Barkley is a perfect fit with this quarterback and this offensive line. And these receivers, by the
spacing, and he can hit a home run. So it's a perfect combination of you have to pay enough attention to Jalen Hurts, and as soon as you're one gap off, he can take it to the house.
And what happens to a linebacker when he puts the ball in the belly, it forces you to pause, so it sets up the blocks for the linemen who are climbing up on you because you're looking at what's going on in the backfield, and now somebody has an angle, you're getting ear hold in the back of the head.
That touchdown run we keep showing, you watch Saquon Barkley delivering the key block as Jalen Hurts is running to the left. He doesn't commit until that happens. So Jalen Hurts touchdown.
That started the other video, but this one is good too. That play, the one we just showed, the 60-yard touchdown. Green. Like tell me if you had the same experience I did watching the game.
Oh yeah.
The Commanders get it.
Yeah.
They go. It takes them like 8 minutes. Yep. They go down the field. They kick a field goal, and I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be a game. And then first play, Barkley, 60-yard touchdown. I thought, I'll deal in the most important part of this because you just said it's so well assembled, you can't give credit to any one person. What Jason Kelsey is saying is there's one person who's not getting credit for it that should be. Everyone talks about the line because they're 1,700 pounds. Right. And obviously everyone talks about Saquon because that's what we can all see. And no one, when we analyze / grade the quarterback and we say, well, he's only throwing for 180 yards, we don't put that on his ledger.
Yeah, and the problem is he did have some bad games this year. He wasn't consistent week to week as a passer. the way he might have been 2 years ago when they went to the Super Bowl. So, he opened himself up to some criticism that was external and also some that was internal. Remember the A.J. Brown passing and the Chickies and Pete's with Brandon Graham? That was a week of that. And then they came back and said, with a big passing game, said, "I told you so." And you're like, wait a minute, you told yourself so. Anyway, the point is, he has opened himself up to it by not having the kind of consistently excellent year that we saw from him a couple of years ago. There's nothing wrong with that.
He averaged 197 yards passing per game, which is 29th. And with everything else going on in the league, with all the fireworks we're seeing, I think that's where some of the criticism comes from. But if Jalen Hurts was sitting right here, he would say, "Judge me by us winning."
Right.
And that goes all the way back to high school, what he dealt with at Alabama. And at the end of the day, hard stop. He's in the Super Bowl 2 of the last 3 years.
But the issue is he has to win the big game where he may have to step out of his comfort zone. All he has to make is 1 and 2 defining plays, and it changes the entire trajectory and how we feel about Jalen Hurts. If he wins a title and he beats Patrick Mahomes, just like we talk about Eli, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? Is he not? He beat Tom Brady. Okay, he's
twice.
Right,
in the Super Bowl.
he's in.
It's right. And look, he's young. He will have an entire portion of his career that doesn't include Saquon Barkley. Running backs just don't play as long as quarterbacks do. So he'll get that chance. The reality is, here was the Eagles season. And I think we all will agree they did this right. They played their first 4 games of the year. Jalen Hurts had 7 turnovers in those 4 games. They were 2 and 2. They had a bye. They all got together and they said, our defense is so good. And from that point forward, they were. We've got Barkley, and we can run the heck out of the ball. Whatever happens, let's just stop turning it over. And from that point forward, he only had 3 turnovers and 0 in the playoffs. So what does that mean? It means playing more conservatively, playing more cautiously, not putting the ball in harm's way, counting on your defense when you need to, and getting the explosive plays with Barkley. It makes sense.
Their opponent next Sunday is the ultimate example of a team that understands immediately what it has and what it doesn't have, what kind of game it's in versus what kind of game it was in last week, and what it needs to do to take advantage of its advantages and win that particular game. The Eagles are built to do it. We'll see if they can do it.
All right, let's do more or less. It's brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. And Mike T, let's start with you, and we're talking about the running game. The total on Saquon Barkley is 115.5 rushing yards. You going more or less?
I'm less, and I'm believing in Steve Spagnuolo saying, hey, if we lose to this Eagle team, it's not going to be because of the greatness of Saquon Barkley. Again, Greeny, 18 consecutive postseason games for Spags as the defensive coordinator of the Chiefs. None of them have had a 100-yard rusher by the opposition. Bart mentioned Chris Jones earlier, maybe as an MVP. I think Philly can win. I don't think it's going to be because of their run game.
Graz, the number on Mahomes, 249.5 passing yards, more or less?
I go with less, fewer actually. But anyway, yeah, fewer, because the Chiefs are about these long possessions, right? And they want to kind of shorten the game a little bit. Mahomes hasn't been putting up monster passing numbers this year. I think I go a little bit under this number because the Chiefs are going to want to slow this game down, keep Saquon off the field as much as possible.
Again, these numbers are all from ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Bartholomew, we've been talking about Jalen Hurts. His total yards is 252.5, so that would be passing plus rushing. You go more or less?
I'm going to go more because I think his legs are going to be in effect. At this point, you have nothing. You got to empty the tank.